Nick, I only realized that you came third in the mayoral elections. I only realized that this morning. So, an incredibly belated congratulations. 7.6% you got, didn't you?
Yeah, I came third. Wasn't bad for a one-man band with no funding, no help, no support. I beat Reform UK, the Lib Dems, the Greens. Tories only just beat me, but Andy Burnham from Labour was way ahead.
Yeah, but it's a good result, very respectable result. I wanted to talk to you about two things, really. One is the strange disappearance of what was absolutely front page news for days, and that was the violent incident at Manchester Airport, where initially we were told that the police were guilty of it was inferred was a racist assault on the public. But then very quickly, when we saw a longer video, things were not as they seemed. What's happened to that case and why has it vanished off the media?
My understanding at the moment is those two gentlemen, well, not weren't gentlemen, were they? Those two thugs who were arrested at the airport have not been charged yet. That's my understanding, which is quite surprising. Been bailed. I mean, if you're a white person shouting stuff on the street, not only do you get arrested, locked up, and refused bail and getting caught in 4 days' time, but if you've assaulted police officers, you don't even get charged yet and you're straight out on bail. What's going on here? The simple answer is nobody knows. Absolutely nobody knows why this is taking so long and why these people haven't been charged. I'm beginning to think there's more to this than meets the eye. I'm beginning to think there's more video footage of maybe the police doing something wrong, the police aggravating the situation, or things went on before. Because this carried on through the airport. This wasn't just what we saw. This was going on when the mum got off the flight and everything. So I think that there must be more to this than we know. Or it could be as simple as we just don't want any trouble with the Asian Muslim community, because they already demonstrated outside Rochdale police station when those two people were arrested and the video came out. And Labour at the moment will do anything to keep the Muslim vote and try to claim back some of the votes they lost through Free Palestine. So the simple answer is we don't know. It's all guesswork at the moment.
The reason it's so strange to me is that the mainstream media were absolutely intent on saying, and they said it pretty overtly, oh, this could be racism by the police. And they played that video again and again and again. But then when we saw the violence or apparent violence by those you describe as thugs, there was a little bit of coverage, but it was proportionately tiny compared to the original coverage. And regardless of what one may think about the police, there was a massive alarm bell for me when the person who beat you for mayor, Andy Burnham himself, said from the outset, this is much more complicated. And although there was an open goal for him to slam the Manchester police, he didn't do it. I don't want to put words in your mouth here, Nick, but it seems to me this is an absolutely first-class case of third-rate reporting where there was a narrative by the mainstream and they never put it right.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why this channel exists. That's why we have TNT Radio, because the mainstream press are not the press anymore now. They're now propaganda narratives. So they jumped on this story because it was a fantastic story that fed into what they wanted to report. Racist people. Those police officers were white. The people on the floor were brown. This has to be racism. Oh, look, second video comes out. Oh, those people on the floor were thugs. Do you know what? Let's stop talking about this now. And guess what? We now have white people writing in the country. They're far-right racist thugs. Let's change the narrative and direct at them. This is just propaganda. And more people are beginning to see it. And more stations like this one are the only ones who are telling the truth and having these complicated, difficult discussions.
I have to tell you, that is something I was talking off air with my colleagues about, that we are staying where we are in terms of free speech, but increasingly, I feel we're operating like an island in a totalitarian ocean. And that bothers me greatly, Nick. And it leads me to the wider question. I'm glad to say, by the way, tomorrow we have Isabel von Spruce, the silent prayer lady, on the show. You know a lot about the police and policing in this country. West Midlands Police had to pay £13,000 worth of compensation to her because they unlawfully arrested her twice for silent prayer. What's your take on the police's actions here? Is it too much to say that they were trying to set the precedent of a thought crime?
Let me correct you one thing, first of all. They didn't pay her £13,000 from police money. They gave her £13,000 of our money.
Yeah.
Of money, taxpayers' money that could have been used somewhere else to get a better result. That's what they spent £13,000 on. So someone there needs sacking. Who would have thought in this country in our lifetime, you can be arrested for thinking something, not for doing something, not for telling somebody what you were thinking about, and not trying to entice somebody to think something, just for you stood on a public street having a thought in your head, and you can be arrested for that. If you'd have told me this 10 years ago, I'd have said you're going off the cliff here now with these conspiracy theories. This is just far too much. How those police officers, I mean, they were junior police officers, but they were told to do that. That went up the chain of command. They got sent to that street corner to arrest her. The people who sent her should know better. The people who sent her are the same sort of people, the same sort of mentality, who stood in Nuremberg going, I was just following orders. They're those type of people who have got no morality, who are cowards, who will not stand up and say, do you know what? I am a police sergeant, I'm a police inspector, but this crosses a line for me, and I'm not going to persecute the people I said I was going to protect. And we need some police officers sacrificing their careers and standing up in uniform to the press and saying it as it is. Because if they don't do that, they're just like the Stasi, they're just like the Gestapo, and that's where we're heading at the moment. We're at the foothills of that. I'm not saying we're there yet, but that's a direction of travel in this country.
And connected to that, and finally, Nick, it may be noble for a police officer to say, I do not consent to this kind of unlawful policing. But all I see coming out of our current government is not a modicum of remorse, but instead a strong inference of them telling us, well, we need to think about how to do this in a different way.
Yeah. And what else can the government do? What else can the government do? Because they all believe in what they're doing. The 14 years of Tories before this government all believed in the same stuff. This isn't a Labour problem. It just happens that this all kicked off on a Labour watch. But this would have kicked off just like this under the Tories, because they're all as bad as each other. They're all career politicians who think they know better than me and you. They're the type of politicians who think to themselves, if I ruled the world, we'd have utopia, because I'm smarter than everybody else. I'm more compassionate than everybody else. I'm tougher than everybody else. And I understand complicated things. What they don't realise is that's exactly what Mussolini, Stalin, Gaddafi, Idi Amin, they all said the same things. None of them went into power wanting to be a tyrant, wanting to go down in history as an evil person. But when you get on the treadmill of trying to control the populace, it always comes down to brutality at the end of the day. You've got to enforce it at the end of the day through the babble of a gun. You have to eventually get to that stage. And that's, like I say, we're at the beginning of that now, where the police can arrest people for shouting in the street, get you in court the next day, in prison 2 days later. And to get a place in prison for you, Mr. Shouty, we're going to let a rapist out. We're going to let a murderer out. We're going to let that guy who was involved in the machete attack. We're going to let him out of jail because we can't have Mr. Shouty on the streets because he's shouting about the establishment. He's shouting about the government. He's a danger to us. The rapist, the murderer, the machete guy, he's not a danger to us as politicians. We've got security. We live in fantastic areas. He's not a danger to me. Mr. Shouty is a danger. I will come down on him hard. And that's the policy at the moment.
Nick Buckley, as always, erudite, ominous, and a very serious warning to us.
Did you enjoy that video? I think you did. Come on now, hit that bell, subscribe, comment. Let's build this channel. I need more followers, I need more subscribers. Be part of the journey. See you soon.